She trusted him to walk her home. It was supposed to be the safest part of her night, a short walk through quiet streets after celebrating her birthday with friends. But before sunrise, she was gone. When 20-year-old Keely Bunker left a nightclub in Birmingham in September 2019, she had no idea she was walking beside the man who would end her life. She wasn't with a stranger. She wasn't in danger's shadow. She was with someone she'd known for years, a friend she believed would protect her. Hours later, her body was found hidden under branches near a shallow pool in a local park. The town of Tamworth, England, woke to a nightmare that would shake the entire country and eventually change the law itself. But how does a night that starts with laughter, music, and celebration turn into something so dark, so unforgivable? To understand that, we have to go back to who Keely was and the night she thought would be nothing more than one last birthday party. Before we dive deeper into this case, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Every interaction helps more people discover these real stories, and it truly makes a difference. Keely Bunker wasn't just another name in a headline. She was a bright, loving, down-to-earth young woman who seemed to have her whole future ahead of her. Born in 1999 in Tamworth, England, she grew up in a tight-knit family that adored her. Her parents, Debbie and Christopher, often said she was the glue that held everyone together. She wasn't just a big sister, she was a protector, the kind of person who always checked in to make sure everyone else was okay. Those who knew her described her as kind, nurturing, and determined. She loved helping others, especially children, and had just landed an interview for a teaching assistant position at her old primary school. Life was finally falling into place. So, when her 20th birthday rolled around, she wanted to celebrate. Nothing wild, just a night out with friends. On September 18th, 2019, a week after her actual birthday, Keely made plans with her best friend Monique to attend a rap concert in Birmingham. The artist H was performing, one of Keely's favorites, and it felt like the perfect way to close out her birthday week. After the show, the energy was high. They weren't ready to end the night, so they headed to Snobs, a popular nightclub nearby. The music was loud, the lights were bright, and for a few hours, life felt simple. Two friends laughing, dancing, filming clips on their phones, just being 20. Sometime during the night, they ran into a familiar face, Wesley Street. Keely had known him since childhood, someone she saw as harmless, maybe even a little goofy. Monique knew him too, though not as well. He joined them for drinks and everything still seemed normal, but while the girls sipped vodka Red Bulls and danced, Wesley kept drinking, a lot. Witnesses later said he was far more intoxicated than anyone else. By the end of the night, around 4 a.m., the trio headed home. Monique begged Keely to crash at her place. She had a big interview the next day and plenty of time to sleep in. But Keely was stubborn. She wanted her own bed. Wesley offered to walk her home, and Keely reassured her friend, "Don't worry, I've got Wes. I'll be fine." It was one of those moments that feels completely harmless, until you realize it was the last time anyone saw her alive. When Keely and Wesley left Monique's house that night, everything seemed ordinary. The streets were quiet, the air cool, and the only sound was the distant hum of cars. Keely, standing just under 5 feet tall, walked confidently beside someone she'd known most of her life. She trusted him completely, but by morning, that trust had vanished, replaced by silence. When Monique woke up later that day, she sent Keely a quick message on Snapchat. No reply. That was strange. Keely was never the kind of person to ignore her phone. A few hours later, she tried again. Still nothing. By the time Keely missed her teaching assistant interview that afternoon, worry had turned into panic. Monique contacted Keely's family, hoping there was some simple explanation. Maybe she'd fallen asleep at home or lost her phone. But when her parents said she never came back that night, everyone knew something was wrong. By early evening, Keely was officially reported missing. Police began retracing her steps, starting with the last person seen with her, Wesley Street. At first, Wesley's story seemed believable enough. He said he'd walked Keely most of the way home, but stopped near a phone booth because he felt sick and needed to go straight home. He claimed she insisted she'd be fine walking the rest of the way alone. But as investigators pressed for details, his story started to crumble. Where exactly did he leave her? Did he see her get home? Did she say anything before they parted? Each time they asked, his answers changed. Small inconsistencies at first, then bigger ones. While police tried to piece together his timeline, Keely's family and friends organized their own search. Dozens of people spread out across Tamworth, scanning streets, parks, and wooded areas. They refused to believe she'd just disappeared. Then, around 9 p.m., one of the search groups stopped cold. From deep within Wigington Park, a relative shouted, the kind of scream that freezes your blood. Keely had been found. Her body lay face down in a shallow stream, partially hidden under a pile of branches. It was a discovery that shattered her family, her friends, and her entire community. In that instant, the story changed from missing person to murder investigation. And the man who claimed to have walked her home safely was suddenly at the center of it all. After Keely's body was discovered, the quiet town of Tamworth turned into a crime scene. Police cordoned off the park, collecting evidence from every inch of the stream and surrounding woods. What they found painted a horrifying picture. Keely's clothes had been disturbed. Her leggings and underwear were pulled down and tangled around her shoes. Her long brown hair was knotted with twigs, and there were bruises covering her neck, face, and shoulders. Later, an autopsy would confirm what everyone feared. Keely had been assaulted and strangled. Over 100 separate injuries were found on her body. This wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. It was violent. It was personal. Meanwhile, Wesley Street was brought in for questioning. Not as a suspect yet, but as the last person to see her alive. His demeanor was strange from the start. He didn't look devastated or even confused. He looked irritated, as if the questions were an inconvenience. When officers asked for his phone, he hesitated and gave them the wrong passcode. That small act alone made detectives uneasy. When they finally accessed the phone, they found no smoking gun, but his search history and tone raised red flags. He said he was embarrassed about his Google searches, that he didn't want them to laugh. At the same time, Keely's best friend Monique was conducting her own quiet investigation. When she spoke to Wesley, she noticed scratches on his face, scratches that hadn't been there the night before. His version of events kept changing. First, he said he'd left Keely by a phone booth. Then he said he'd walked her closer to her street. Then he claimed he went home and threw up. Later, he said he didn't throw up at all. The smallest details kept shifting, like a man trying to rewrite a story that was no longer his to control. Detectives decided to take him out in the police car and retrace his supposed route home. Body cam footage later showed him fidgeting, defensive, playing the victim. "Why are people blaming me?" he kept asking. He didn't seem worried about Keely, only himself. Then came the breakthrough. Between 4:28 a.m. and 4:52 a.m., Wesley's phone suddenly went dark. No GPS activity, no data. But at 4:54 a.m., it pinged again, right on the edge of Wigington Park, the exact area where Keely's body was found. Minutes later, CCTV captured a figure matching Wesley's build, sprinting away from that same location. The footage was grainy, but the timing was undeniable. Now backed into a corner, Wesley's calm facade began to crack. And what he said next only made things worse. Once confronted with the evidence, the GPS data, the CCTV footage, and Keely's DNA found on his clothes, Wesley Street started to panic. But instead of telling the truth, he built a web of lies, each more desperate than the last. At first, he claimed that Keely had tripped and hit her head while he was giving her a piggyback ride in the park. He said she went limp, that he panicked and hid her body because he didn't know what else to do. But the autopsy showed no head injury, no fall, no accident. So he changed his story again. This time, he said everything between them had been consensual, that they were messing around. And during intimacy, his arm accidentally pressed on her neck. He said he didn't realize she had stopped breathing until it was too late, but investigators weren't buying it. Keely's neck showed clear defensive wounds, signs that she fought back. Her body told a story of resistance, not consent. Witnesses from that night also revealed another truth. Keely had shown no romantic interest in Wesley. CCTV footage even showed her gently pushing his arm away when he tried to put it around her. She wasn't flirting. She was uncomfortable. When his case went to trial in 2020, the prosecution laid everything bare. They showed the jury how Wesley had lied again and again, twisting his story to fit the evidence as it surfaced. 4 different versions, all designed to save himself. In court, Wesley tried to appear calm, almost detached. He told the jury he never meant to hurt Keely, that her death was just an accident. But when asked what he was thinking after killing her, his answer stunned the courtroom. "I was just thinking, why me? Not why her. Not what have I done. Why me?" The words cut through the silence like a knife. It wasn't remorse, it was self-pity. Even as Keely's family sat in the gallery, grieving the loss of their daughter, Wesley could only see himself as the victim. After weeks of evidence, witness statements, and emotional testimony, the jury returned their verdict: guilty of rape and murder. Wesley Street was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum of 29 years before he could ever be considered for parole. For Keely's parents, Debbie and Christopher, the sentence was justice, but not peace. Their daughter was gone, and no punishment could fill that silence. But as the courtroom emptied, something unexpected happened. More women started to come forward, and the case that had already shaken the country was about to reveal an even darker truth. When the verdict was read, Keely's family finally had some sense of closure, at least on paper. But behind the courtroom doors, a quiet storm was building. In the days that followed Wesley Street's conviction, more women came forward. One after another, they told police stories that sounded disturbingly familiar. Stories of being assaulted by the same man years earlier when they were still teenagers. Their ages ranged from 15 to 20. One said it happened in 2015, when she was just 16. Another in 2017. And one more. In the very same year, Keely was killed. They described him as manipulative, predatory, someone who hid behind his charm and friendship until it was too late. They had stayed silent out of fear, shame, or confusion, believing no one would take them seriously. But when they saw Keely's face on the news, something changed. One survivor said, "When I heard what happened to Keely, I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore." Another said, "I thought it was my fault, until I realized he had done it to her too." Their bravery didn't just expose a pattern, it showed the full scope of the monster Keely had unknowingly trusted. Wesley Street wasn't a man who lost control one night. He was a predator who had been getting away with it for years. And for investigators, it confirmed what many already suspected. Keely's case was not an isolated tragedy. It was the final act in a long trail of violence that could have been stopped sooner. Still, amid the grief and anger, something remarkable began to take shape. A movement. Keely's name became a rallying cry for justice and reform. Her story wasn't just a headline anymore, it was a catalyst for change. Keely's death didn't just lead to one man's conviction. It sparked a movement that changed British law forever. For years, there had been a disturbing trend in the UK justice system. Men accused of killing women during sexual activity would claim it was a case of rough sex gone wrong. They'd insist it was consensual, that the victim wanted it, that it was all just an accident. Shockingly, some juries believed them, but after Keely's case, and several others like it, the public had had enough. People began demanding that the law recognize what these cases truly were: murder, not accidents. In 2021, Parliament passed the Domestic Abuse Act, and buried within that legislation was a groundbreaking change. The new law made it illegal to use rough sex as a defense when a victim dies or is seriously harmed. It stated clearly that no one can consent to their own injury or death, and that anyone claiming otherwise would face the full weight of the law. During debates in Parliament, Keely Bunker's name was mentioned. Her story was cited as one of the driving forces behind the reform. Her face appeared in news reports, her name on banners and petitions, symbolizing the need for change. In death, Keely did what she had done her entire life. She protected others. Her legacy became more than just a tragic memory. It became a shield for future victims. A message to the justice system that excuses would no longer be tolerated. For her family, that change didn't erase the pain, but it meant that Keely's story had purpose. Her mother, Debbie, said in a statement, "Our home is broken. Our lives are shattered, but knowing her name helped change the law. That gives us something to hold on to." Keely's life was short, But the ripples of her story continue to save others, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, light can still break through. Keely Bunker's story isn't just about a crime, it's about trust and how easily it can be broken. She wasn't walking with a stranger that night. She was walking with someone she'd grown up with, someone she considered a friend, someone she believed would get her home safely. That's what makes her story so haunting. It forces us to ask a question none of us want to think about. How well do we really know the people we trust? Keely's death wasn't random, it was personal. And that's what gives this story its power, the realization that evil doesn't always hide behind shadows or masks. Sometimes it smiles at you, sometimes it offers to walk you home. Her family still speaks about her kindness, her laughter, the way she lit up every room. They've said that not a single day passes without thinking of her, that the silence she left behind is louder than anything. But through their pain, they've built something powerful. Keely's story changed laws, opened conversations, and encouraged survivors to speak out. Her name stands as a reminder that justice doesn't always start in a courtroom. Sometimes it begins with a single voice refusing to stay quiet. She was compassionate, loving, and full of life. And though her time was cut short, her legacy continues to protect others, just as she always did. Because in the end, Keely's story isn't just about what was taken from her. It's about what she gave back to the world, a truth that can't be buried, a light that still refuses to fade.